Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night, depending on when and where you're listening to the Gift of Gaming podcast. And on this week, we're forgetting about the games we played so we can play them all over again. It's another Mindwipe. All right, it's me, your host, Darren Wade, and today on the podcast, I am joined by the host and creator of the D3 Invitational, KP. KP, how are you, bud?
I am very, very well. I'm glad that's what I'm known for now. That's a good one.
Yeah. I was like, I'm always trying to find like something for everybody, and I was like, I don't have anything for KP yet, but I mean, that was a fabulous Switch golf tournament we all
I had
played.
an absolute ball. To this, I'm still annoyed that I didn't push for the tiebreaker. Craig pipped me at the post there. Well, I suppose he was always ahead.
He was always ahead, but you were so close to bringing
close.
It to a playoff at the very end.
It would have been perfect for the inaugural. Do you know what I mean? Like that real sense of competition there. Because the final few holes were hilarious.
And it's funny because we played the odd game here or there. It's fun, whatever. We're not too competitive ever, but it's a different vibe when you're there in a room with people watching, and there's like, there's prize money. There's the jacket, the winner's jacket, and the cup. A lot on the line. No, I had a blast. I'd love to do another one again soon. I know it's like we said it was like a yearly thing, but it was funny when we were all leaving. Everyone was like, "Oh, I do it twice a year. Oh, I do it quarterly."
Yeah, well, I'm the exact same. I would 100% do that again very, very soon. I will host if needs be. I do not mind. That was an absolute belter because I want to see that jacket change hands as well.
Yeah, and
because I feel Craig could hold on to it for a while.
Yeah,
he is good.
Thing. He has his bad days. We played a game. I think it was probably sometime last week. He was played a game and he had it's amazing his ability to bring it back. He had a bogey on the first hole, but then brought it back to draw with me for we did like a 9-hole random or something like that, But I thought at that point, I was a shoo-in. But, he managed to bring it up to a draw at the very end and I was devastated. It's not often I get a chance to...
It's the nerves as well,
Yeah.
They do get you. Because I remember when we were playing it, I was cracking my whole laughing at one stage because I was sitting there, like I had just gone, so I sat down on the chair, so I knew I had 3 rounds or 3 turns before anyone else was going to go. And I can't remember if it was you or somebody else was up. And they were taking their shot, and I could see their knees bounding from side to side because the pressure was on at this stage. I think it was the first 9, so the cutoff was there, and there was a few of us in it to make the cutoff.
What I loved about it as well at the start, and it's funny how it kind of shifted, much like a real game of golf, if that's what you're into. But because we had the two rooms split up with a couple of monitors and a couple of people playing, we were in the other room and we could hear people cheering and shouting, "God, that's an eagle," or "That's whatever else," and it made me nervous in the other room to be like, "Fuck, I can't even see what's going on here," and I know I need to pick up my game if I want to be in a chance with the final.
Within the first 3 holes, there was 2 eagles
Luke
on the
and
group
Niall
that I couldn't believe it because that really got to me as well. I was like, "Oh God, damn, the standards
am I
through the roof here."
Yeah, we've only just opened up. Give me a break. But Kippy, what have you been playing of late?
The last few weeks I've been playing through all of the Uncharted games. Actually, I downloaded them all there. You can get them in 2 bundles off the PlayStation Store for or PS Plus for a free download if you have the subscription, which I do. So I'm on the 4th one now. I've been blasting through them. It's been great. They're awesome.
4th one I never played, but my brother did. Really enjoyed it. 2 and 3 I had an absolute blast with back in the day. I haven't touched them since.
Well, they're well worth it. Because I was kind of looking for a more level-based linear game that I couldn't just go off. Because that's one of the areas I fall down with a lot of games. I kind of go open world exploring a bit too much, and then I burn out. So I was like, I need a reset, and I was like, they would be perfect. And it's really fun actually playing them in order because back to back in order because I hadn't touched them in a very long time, and I think they came out in 2009, 11, 2007, 2009, 2011, then 2016. So there's not that much time in between the first 4. The jump in quality, graphics, gameplay mechanics, everything from 3 to 4 is just outrageous to see it happen.
Was 1, 2 and 3 all PlayStation 3 and then 4 was PlayStation 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would explain.
And do they, I know 3 and 4 is different. Do the other ones hold up gameplay wise? Are they still fun to play?
So the 3 you can get in the first bundle, the first 3, they're all remastered. So
grand.
Pretty fine. Obviously remastered 2, I'd agree, they don't look like the 4th one by any stretch, but no, they play well. A bit clunky at times, but the narrative is always good. It's just
I love was it 3 had the online PvP?
I haven't done
back
that
in the
yet.
day.
No,
I think that
might
had
have done.
it was weird maps as well, like maps that were kind of just like very much this weird multiplayer map arena type thing. But had the bits where you could like jump on ropes and swing from ledges and fire people while you're jumping on. Like it was just fun. Do you know what I mean? It was a game that I thought to myself didn't need a multiplayer, but playing it, I was like, this isn't too bad.
Well, what I'm loving as well is anyone in your like friend group on like if you've added them on a PlayStation, you have like different challenges. So like I got like 30 headshots there in one game, and it's like you have beaten, and it's Luke Harrington's gamer tag, which is it's a hilarious gamer tag. So it keeps popping up. So and I'm seeing that quite a bit. Like messaging there, being like, hey,
take
30,
that, broken your record.
Yeah.
A podcast I used to listen to years ago had a section. And they removed it because PlayStation, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, allowed you to change your gamer tag, which I actually did only because I was just like, I thought of a cool one. Like my one that currently is Rendarks, which is just my name jumbled up with an X in it, which is what all the villains had in Kingdom Hearts 2. Do you know what I mean? So I was like,
you had to get a Kingdom Hearts reference in.
Of course I do, every episode, man. I've been laxing of late. But they used to do a section where people used to write in with their embarrassing gamer tags that they've been stuck with. So like, they're still playing PlayStation. You can't change your gamer tag up until 4 years ago. So there's people who had gamer tags back from they were like 12, 13, and they were playing Call of Duty, and some of the stuff was like,
it's dark.
It's not great. Like,
did you ever see there was this random, just going on a tangent here about gamer tags, but there was this like kind of like meme or a thing that people were doing on like Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and it was like to lean over your partner's shoulder. So a lot of like girlfriends looking over their boyfriend's shoulder as they're playing, and then read out their gamer tag name or call them their gamer tag name. And the best one I saw was this girl, she got the camera on her face, and like, she looks at the name and looks at the boyfriend and is like, the conquistador. So good.
It's just like the fucking teenage boy humor. You never think at that stage, you never think those things are ever going to come and bite you in the ass. Do you know what I mean? I love it. Some of them are so good. Because I missed that section. They stopped doing that thing on this podcast I listened to. I can't remember which one it was. I haven't listened to it in years, but they stopped doing it because people could change the name or tags. So like, okay, the joke's kind of gone or whatever. But every episode, like, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but they'd throw 3 or 4 in, and I'd be sitting there being like, oh, lads, like, what were you thinking? But of course, like, I don't think I ever had an embarrassing gamer tag for anything. But it's one that I always find funny is that Kev and Luke, when we used to play online games together back when we were really young, I'd go over to their house because I didn't have online. It was all Halo. All their Halo mates, because they'd play with the same people and add them as friends on Xbox Live and chat to them and ask them if they want to come on for another game of Halo. So there was all of these these dudes that they would talk about in school when we were in primary school, but like never knew their real names.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, Porky04, we're going to hop on with some games with him. And I was like, who the fuck are the lads talking about? Like, just didn't know the real names of anybody. Like, all this gamer tags. Like,
hiding behind this veil. Who is this man? Yeah. Or a woman.
Is it a man? So just speaking of games, I, much like you, was pretty much burnt out with open worlds. I played Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, 120 hours. Most likely. The great thing about that game is 120 hours in that game is a standard. Like, that's not a completionist run.
I was just going to ask, like, what percentage are you at?
I mean, like, percentage-wise, I'm sure. Like, I would have done most of the side quests, things like that. But there's loads of like mini games and all these extra bits and pieces you can do.
You're not collecting trophies or anything.
And you can I'd be a bit of a trophy collector myself. So that was like 120 hours, and I'd say to complete it like on hard mode and get all that, like the platinum for that game, you're probably talking, because you need to play through the whole fucking storyline again, which is massive. You're probably talking like close to 200 hours for a completionist run on that game for like 70-80 quid. The best value from a game.
That is quality.
I finished it and was like, maybe I'll go straight in for my hard mode playthrough. I couldn't do it. Like, I was like, no, I've got seriously burnt out in this game. But I'm playing at the minute, and I mentioned in the last episode, Astrobot.
Oh yeah, I've heard it's great.
Fucking love it, man.
Yeah,
it's such a nice palate cleanser from any like the big heavy kind of games. Like, pick up and play like a good old fashioned Mario platformer.
It's platformer, is it? Yeah.
Great. And loads of PlayStation references. That's my favorite part in terms of each level you go into, you're rescuing all the other little robot people. But in each world, there's 2 or 3 that are dressed up as, like, they're special robots, but they're dressed up as past PlayStation characters. Cool. So only, like, today, I saved Nathan Drake. Funny you should mention. Before you came up, I was playing a bit, and I rescued Nathan Drake and got, like, you buy, in the shop with the coins you pick up, you buy accessories for all the robots that you save, and each accessory relates to the game they're from. So like Resident Evil, I unlocked like Jill Valentine, and her accessory was a door with a zombie behind it.
Perfect.
But it all comes out like this is like world where it's like the hub base, whatever, where you're trying to bring all the robots to save. But it's so much fun to walk around that because it is just like a PlayStation museum to just view all the different, like Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank.
Love it.
God of War, loads of characters were there, Ape Escape, all that kind of stuff. I was like, oh wow, this game is, top tier. I'm like, I knew I'd enjoy it because I got. Did you ever play? You have a PS5, right?
Yeah.
Did you play Astrobot Playroom, the game that came with it free?
I never bothered. I see it there, and I'm just like, meh.
Because the Playroom came with it free when I got the PS5, and I was like, oh, I'll give this a go. Because it's for me, it was like, oh, all the haptics and the DualSense, everything works with this. I was like, this would be cool. I platinumed Playroom straight away. I was like, this game is so much fun. Like,
I think I'll have to give that a look then when I go home.
I mean, if it's still free, absolutely, I'd say give it a shot, because it's just like I said, if you're looking for something that's not that open world big side quest, like I'd say, and if you're coming to the end of your Uncharted playthrough,
nearly there.
Astrobot's even the Playroom, if it's still free, is worth a shout.
I'll give that a go. Yeah, no, because I can't remember if I was listening to this podcast or another one, but I've heard a lot of people raving about it. Recently.
It's in a lot of articles I've been reading. It's in a lot of people's game of the year contenders and things like that, which brings us to our next point. So the post show today, KP, I'm going to ask you what your game of the year so far this year has been. Released this year or not, in terms of if you've gone back and visited some old games. So while we're going to the episode, you can have a think on some.
Sounds like a plan.
But I guess we'll actually do today's episode, which is a Mindwipe.
Let's do it.
So for the previous Mindwipe, I think the general idea was that we would look at revisit a game, or if there was any game that we could revisit and not know anything about it based on how good the game was, what would you go for? Now, I've already been on a Mindwipe episode, so people don't want to hear me talk about Red Dead Redemption and Kingdom Hearts 2 all over again. I mean, I'd love to talk about Kingdom Hearts 2 all over again, but I won't. So I'm thinking for myself, I'm going to kind of revisit some games that I remember it gave me like a certain kind of feeling as a kid, or even an adult, playing some games. But I'll start off with one of yours.
Yes. Okay.
So your mind's wiped. You've never played this game before at all. What is it that you pick up to play?
And you kind of touched on it a little bit there in your Astrobot bit, but it's 2018's God of War.
Great answer.
I absolutely love that game. To this day, it's one of my favorite games I think I've ever played. And it's one of the first games I actually played on the PS5, because before that, my console was an Xbox 360, and I was mainly only playing like...
Were you an Xbox man before the PS5?
I just kind of jumped. So like I had like SNES, PS1, PS2, and then Xbox 360 came after that for me. And I didn't have a PS4. One of the lads I lived with, Luke, at the time, he did, so I'd jump in the odd time and play some of his games. But I never played God of War. I saw him playing it for a bit of time, and like I did play the early God of War games in the PS2 days. So when I got it, when I got my PS5 and I went into there was
the greatest hits. It was like the
greatest
free,
hits. That was it. It was in there like The Last of Us and Days Gone, a few other games like that, like some big names. And I don't think it was the first one I played, but it was within the first two or three games I played on the PS5, and I went into it not knowing a whole lot about where the kind of story and the gameplay went. So I was like, okay, I was expecting Kratos of the Greek days, where you just have this rage boss. Just absolutely like do you remember those earlier games when the game started, like the first thing that happened, it was always like a boss fight. You were just like launched straight into it, mainly to learn the buttons, but
it was those what do you call them, real-time events that you push the button to react to and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because I played God of War 2018 right before Ragnarok came out. So I was like, I'll play through them to get the story. Because when God of War 2018 was coming out back in 2018, I had zero interest in it, because I played one or two of the PS2 ones, not completionist, not like full way through. And I was like, these are okay, but they're not my thing. But when I saw it was this like hugely heavy narrative based game, I was like, holy moly.
And that was one of the early things that kind of jumped out to me, and like something that like I haven't experienced too many times when I've played a game. And I think like the only kind of narrative I can compare it to, like that journey of like father and son in this case, is like The Last of Us, which is like renowned for its narrative. Because like, you know, when the game opens and I was like, that's what I was expecting to fight a Titan straight away, or, you know, a Norse god like instantly, and I was like, oh, I'm at my wife's funeral. I was like, this is a totally different game. And then you've
just reminded me of the opening for that game is unbelievable.
It's stunning, isn't it? Like you're chopping down that tree, and you know, you're building the pyre, and you're with Atreus, and
what's his name arrives at your door? Which?
Oh, one of the gods.
One of the gods, yeah. Who's it that arrives at your door?
Thor arrives at the very end.
Thor's at the end, yeah. So I'm trying to think who's...
Who fucking start?
And
I've mind-wiped myself.
Yeah, you can go back and play now. But that was because I think I was expecting, much like you said when you played the previous ones, like another hack and slash. But I turned it on being like, well, everyone said it's a great narrative story, and, you know, the lead into Ragnarok 2 is going to be amazing, or the Ragnarok's going to be amazing. And I remember playing the game, and then, you know, you do the whole funeral with your wife, and you and Atreus sit in the house. There's a knock on the door, and you enter this guy.
Is it Balder? Is it him?
Is it him? Yeah, maybe it's him, because there's all the lightning and everything. Like, he has got a little bit of lightning, and he's super quick and everything.
Yeah.
And he's impossible really to kill. But that fight was like around your house, and you're like, trees are collapsing.
I'm pretty sure it is Balder, because you're beating the living piss out of him.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, he's just laughing at you.
Yeah, he's just fine. And that's another aspect of the game as well. The combat in that game is absolutely phenomenal, because like, you know, the switch to going from the Blades of Chaos to the Leviathan axe, the way that thing works is so good. 'Cause like, it gave me the impression as well that you are dealing with an older Kratos here, you know, like he's gone on a bit. Maybe he's lost a touch of pace, you know.
Yeah, he's lost that step.
And he's just absolutely swinging this thing around, and then you throw it and you call it back, and it's that beautiful sound.
Today, it still has for me, the 2018 and Ragnarok have one of the greatest feelings in a parry that I've ever experienced in a game, because you get that quick warning thing, but the fact that it goes slow-mo, it's the cool clang against the shield, and like, you know, the vibration, the controller and everything like that. I remember playing that game, and, you know, you get into a fight with a couple of things, you get like 2 or 3 parries off in a row. I felt like such a boss playing that game, but it's powerful. Like there's strength in everything that happens, you know, there's like force everything that happens, so it's really immersive in that way as well when I was playing through the first one.
And the immersion as well, when you're traveling around, like you start off in Midgar and you're like in your boat and you are sailing through, I was just taking it in, because I like, as I said, it was one of the first games I played on the PS5, so like to see what it was capable of, like the graphics alone, I was just like, this is different level. Like I was like jaw on the floor at times, you know. You're looking up at these statues of these old Norse gods, and I was like, this is insane. Like, it was like watching like Lord of the Rings or something when they're sailing through. Like it's just absolutely mind blowing. And the other thing as well, like experiencing for the first time, usually when you're going around a game and you're like collecting stuff, some people are into like the reading of the collectibles and like reading about like maybe like the different enemies and the history behind them. Like for me, I do enjoy it, but it was never something that overly gripped me. Every time in the first God of War, or like, not that it's the first God of War, but the 2018 God of War, every time there was something to be read, I was sitting down soaking in that lore. It was phenomenal. Like, I was like, I'm getting something educational from this as well.
What's the character's name? The guy whose head you attach to your... Mimir.
Yeah.
What a great way to deliver the background story that he just sits on, like, because he's what, like maybe a third of the way through the game. 2018, you get him, right?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, it's a while. You're playing it.
You're playing without him for a little bit, but those bits where you're on the boat and he's telling stories to Atreus, and it just creates this atmosphere of like Kratos is just like, he's there to get it done, to do what needs to be done, and to make sure that Atreus goes up to be strong, because that's what he's all about. Like, you can't have weakness or whatever. And this whole thing, like, and you have those moments where Atreus kind of goes off to do his own thing, and Mimir's having a little bit of a powwow with Kratos to be like, you probably need to lay off on the kid. All of that kind of stuff, just it brings all the characters like so well to life that I was like 20. I mean, because I played them literally one to the next. I played 2018 and then finished it maybe 2 weeks before Ragnarok came out. I went straight into it. It's story-wise, it's unbelievable. I was like rooting for all of these characters the whole way through. And
do you know as well, like, just to touch on that as well, like the kind of characters and the different development, something that like the developers did in that game with the characters that they chose to be the kind of like central characters, like Balder, for example, as like the big bad, and, you know, you've got like Magni and Modi, which are Thor's sons. I love that, like, this was released in 2018, so I don't know how long they were working on it, but they were working on it when I think Norse mythology, a lot of people would have been referring to, like, maybe the Marvel movies. They were like a peak of fame, and we were introduced to all of these characters that you probably had heard
Odin,
of,
Thor,
and Loki, all of them. You'd probably heard of them, but like, unless you were a history buff or a Norse mythology buff, your only way of knowing them would have probably been from these movies, right?
Yeah.
And the devs didn't like rely on that. They were like, no, we don't. We're gonna.
They had their own
introduce
versions,
these later, yeah.
and their own versions are amazing. And one of the things that I love, because one of the ones that I have on my list actually right here is God of War Ragnarok, because of, like, 2018 had such an effect on me, but God of War Ragnarok in terms of the story and how, I mean, you've played through Ragnarok as well and finished, right? Yeah. How the story ends is phenomenal. Like, that story playthrough is unbelievable. But the Thor character is so good.
Yeah.
He's so good. And like, we think of Chris Hemsworth's Thor from Marvel, who's like buff and he's whatever else. And you got this big fat guy who's really not doing the job he's meant to be doing. Alcoholic, kind of out of touch and stuff like that.
Apparently, like, that's a super accurate portrayal though. Like the way he looks in it, where he's like, he's obviously massive and muscle bound, but like, it's also covered in substantial amount of fat.
Because it's what I like. It's what I like what they did with Thor in the Marvel movies. When you got Fat Thor or Big Thor, it was kind of a little bit of a homage to, this is a bit more true to form, because the original Thor in Norse mythology, as you said, wasn't exactly all that. You know, he wasn't the muscly, blonde-haired, you know, absolute Chad or whatever else. He was like, he's a bit fucked up and kind of, most of the gods like in Norse mythology are, but you're right. How they portrayed all the characters was so good.
And Ragnarok as well, the introductions of like different kind of combat mechanics and that were banging. That spear, that was like, that became my number one weapon in that game.
Yeah.
I just liked using, because I was so used to using the other two.
Yeah, you want a bit of something
just
new.
a bit of variety, yeah. And I just like the launching it and then just blowing them up and from a distance. I loved it.
And I think, because like, I mean, we might as well go through God of War and God of War Ragnarok, since we both picked both of them. But I love, and I think that's what I loved about Ragnarok in terms of gameplay wise. It's kind of they're like linear RPGs. You can kind of develop your character. There's like skill trees, whatever. But they introduced just enough that just as you mastered something, they gave you something else.
Yeah.
Like, I had mastered the axe and sword by the time they gave me the Blades of Chaos. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And just as I mastered them, you get the spear. So by the time you're at the end of the game, you have all these things to cycle through. You feel like such a fucking badass. You know what I mean? Like, switching through stuff. And like, there was, you know, again, like, that's what I mean about, especially in Ragnarok, you had like the customizable shields. Like, there was a lot of different kinds of shields, and you can get like the absolute massive tank of a shield, like a proper Spartan kind of shield. That, again, with that parry, that sensation of when you're parrying moves with that shield, it felt like the game just felt so good. But yeah, I think as you said at the start, it's the father-son story is unbelievable. It's
unbelievable. It's like, to see like a character like Kratos, like, you think he's so one-dimensional from the early games. And I suppose that's just the way gaming was at the time. Like, they really didn't delve too far into
very few amazing characters in the early days of gaming.
But to humanize him, like it sounds so funny, he's the God of War, but like to humanize him to that degree and to show this like softer side of this character who, if you've played as him before, was just going around ripping heads off. And like, you can still see that in him when he hits Spartan Rage. Love when he hits Spartan Rage.
But I also love that all that kind of shit, especially Ragnarok, comes back to haunt him. A little bit, you know, because like, people, you know, he starts being reminded of like, oh, you were the guy who fucked up all the gods in this other, like in the Greek, you know, in Greece, whatever else.
Mimir knows who he is.
Mimir starts to get it as time goes on. He's like, shit,
really annoys him.
You're the guy, like, oh my God. But that whole development of the story as well, and that's like him realizing that what Atreus, or what Kratos is doing to Atreus, is making Atreus just kind of like that, you know, that classic, like, he's a teenage kid. He doesn't want to listen to dad, you know, and Mimir's there. Like, it's just such a wonderful... It's what I love about video games, man. When you talk about going to see a movie, watching a TV show, say cinema. So you go in and watch a movie, it's a 2-hour-long film, and you pay, between your popcorn, Coke, whatever else, you might pay 20 quid for this 2 hours.
Yeah.
God of War Ragnarok might have cost 70 quid. Fucking, it's like a 40-hour...
Easily 40. Yeah.
40-hour thing. And, you know, it's the one part to, you know, and I think only people who really get stuck into games get this, but... As a medium, especially the narrative-based games, like, I know there's the FIFAs, the Call of Duties, they all exist, they're all great fun, but the narrative-based games, like your Last of Us, your God of War, they're unbelievable to experience for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's so, as you said, the Mindwipe, it'd be so nice to go through that whole story of God of War all over again. 2018.
Because I've played them each probably a couple times. I think I've only played Ragnarok twice, and on like the second playthrough. Not that it wasn't as enjoyable, because I definitely upped the difficulty level, but I just stuck to the main story, and a little, cause I probably didn't wait enough time to play it again. I started skipping like scenes and that sort of stuff as well, like just focusing on the gameplay, which probably wasn't the best idea. And then I kind of realized, like, what really does make this is the story. Like, 100%. The gameplay is phenomenal.
Because the story about, like, because Atreus ends up, especially in Ragnarok, like he ends up with Odin and the team, and you see how they all live as well. But that moment where, and it has little bits of the lore in it. But the fight between Kratos and Thor is unbelievably good. Great.
Absolutely great.
And it sets up that, like, that electric shock thing that ends up getting frozen in place, and all that kind of stuff in terms of the lore and how it sets up the story. It's so good. And I remember, like, finding, like, the Odin fight and the Thor fight were all really, really difficult. But if I got a game over doing it, there was none of this, like, fuck this game, I'm never gonna. All of it was so enjoyable. I was like, I kind of want this to end. I'll go in and fight Thor again. Do you know what I mean? I'll do the whole thing.
Yeah, but there's such an accurate portrayal, like the teenage son trying to go out and make his own name for himself, and like he runs away from home, like the whole thing. I was like, they've really thought this through. Like, they've humanized these, like, inhuman characters, and gorgeous. The
ending from Ragnarok. So spoilers here. So if you haven't finished God of War Ragnarok, pause this or fast forward this podcast for, like, I don't know, 2 minutes or a minute. The ending of Kratos having to let him go, like, to make his own way, so fucking good. Like, so I was sitting here, like, right over there in this apartment, like, by the TV on the beanbag, playing the end of that game, and like Kratos goes around the back and he's looking at the artwork, the pictures and stuff like that, and like just letting them go and seeing them run off and stuff like that, and like at the end, I think Kratos has a bit of probably the first tear you see Kratos shed. I was sitting being like, oh, this is actually hitting me right in the feels, like, and because
they built on that as well from the very first game. It's like the way the first game ends with that cliffhanger of you see Kratos, like, in a prophecy, dead. So I was waiting the whole game for that. Like, I really, that's how another spoiler there, but anyway, I was waiting the whole time. I was like, well, they're obviously, like, God of War 3 is probably going to be the story of Atreus, and he's going to be growing up and he's doing all that. So I was just sitting there waiting. I was like, oh, I love this character. Like, when are they going to do this? When are they going to do this? And then...
And I'm so glad they didn't, because as much as I like the idea of, like, the classic thing of killing off the main character, and I don't think lots of kind of stories they're never brave enough to do that. Like, you shouldn't just do that, but do it when it would mean something. And it would have meant something to have, like, Ragnarok being, because Ragnarok, what it is the whole thing everything gets destroyed. Do you know what I mean? To have Kratos go in the next series or a couple of games is Atreus, and I don't know what Atreus is the god of again.
Well, he's Loki.
Oh, he's god of mischief.
He's a mischief. Yeah.
Do you imagine the next series of games, like the next trilogy, is like God of Mischief? Do you know what I mean? And you just play as Atreus and stuff like that.
How did you find actually the game? Because I liked the way in the first one, Atreus was just there. He was your companion. You could activate certain actions from him, but you never took control. And then in the second one, obviously there's missions where you play as Atreus. Like, how did you enjoy them? Or like,
I didn't mind them, but I think it was one of those things where his gameplay was never bad. Like, his bow and arrow stuff was pretty dope. Awesome. Like, he was quite strong. But I think the gameplay playing as Kratos and being so powerful was so enjoyable. That when you played as Atreus, I love the story bits, because I can't remember what's the girl's name that he's hanging around with all the time.
Exactly. I can't remember her name.
Thor's daughter, whatever her name is. You're hanging out with her all the time, and I love their little back and forth. It's like it's him learning about the world outside of. It's like he's trapped in a real conservative family, and he goes to school and meets all these other liberal kids, and he's like, holy shit, like that's kind of what happens for him, where he's like, oh my god, like fucking Odin's family doesn't seem so bad, and all that kind of stuff, So I loved what it was giving me story-wise. Gameplay-wise, I'd always be I think just the Kratos stuff was way more fun.
Yeah, I was very similar. Like, I enjoyed the idea and, like, the new mechanics of playing as a new character, and, like, you obviously have to tackle it very differently, where he's pretty much a distance style fighter with the bow and arrow. But there were parts where I was just like, all right, let's get to the scene. Let's get to the cutscenes here. Yeah,
absolutely. A great choice. I'm going to have a little look at my list here and see what I want to... what have I got? I'll pick one up that you can probably relate to as a FIFA fan.
Okay.
But one I wish I could, and it's not so much for the game, because it's a game is standard, and a lot of people probably won't agree with this. But I mean in terms of how this game made me feel at the time, right? So I'll paint a picture for you. The game I'm going to talk about is FIFA 13 in particular.
Okay.
The year is 2012. I've become an avid Wigan Athletic fan, having had previously in my life not been a football fan whatsoever. Watched them through the Premier League. They're kind of lower mid table, fairly average. I only really like them because they beat Man United in a game before, which really annoyed my granddad because he was a Man United fan through and through. So that's kind of why I supported them. But I kept an eye on them then afterwards. Then 2012 was my first year of like watching them in the Premier League. Mm-hmm. Thought it was the best thing ever. 2013 comes along. I'm still playing it. I'm like, man, maybe I'll play one of them FIFA games. And it was the year that Wigan got relegated from the Premier League, but at the same time won the FA Cup, like with the big underdogs. No one was expecting it. They were up against one of the biggest, like David and Goliath story. And it's the first time I've ever gotten, at that time I was kind of more into, like if I was watching sports or into sports in any way, shape or form, it would have been more kind of athletics stuff, like the Olympics. I would have been kind of a big fan of that, but I wasn't big into rugby or football at the time. But now it had like hooked me. You know, when they won that the FA Cup, I remember I was with my mate Danny in his back garden. Like he's a cabin where we were watching the match, and after Wigan scored that goal, I remember running out to the garden, dropping to my knees, and like pulling at my Wigan jersey at the crest. You know, being like, who the fuck am I? Like, you know, what's happened to me? But now fast forward a couple of months, or fast forward like 2 months, whatever, in FIFA 13 or whatever comes out, or it's been, I can't remember, but I got it, and kind of first experience into FIFA, and to go to show how big an effect this game had on me, it is still to date currently, which is mad, the most hours I've put into any video game that I've ever owned. I
cannot believe that's the game for you. Yeah, but I can see why you want to experience it again, because it's made a feeling.
So
like,
I was
for
like,
a FIFA game for you is just so funny.
It's
like,
so weird, and even still, like I'm sure maybe in terms of the Monster Hunters back on the PSP would probably be more. But when I look at my PlayStation list, FIFA fucking 13 is still the most played. But again, at the time, and this is why I'd love to kind of capture that again if I could, like, you know, go back and wipe all that from memory and do it all again. It would be, you know, Danny, our mate's a big Arsenal fan. My other mate Andy, he was at that time not so much into football. Now he's a big Spurs fan, so we'd always meet up and we'd have like fucking 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 game matches.
Oh yeah.
And it'd be like Spurs v Arsenal, like, you know, the big rivalry there. And I just picked Wigan for the sheer fucking fun of it and play them. And when I beat them, it was that sad. Like, I mean, I didn't do it that often because they were FIFA 13. They were shit.
Yeah,
like they were bottom of the Premier League. They were bottom of the Premier League. But it was that real fun thing where I was like, I've finally gotten, like, I've locked into a sport.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with it. I've got this thing beside me, like this you know, application, this game that I can play that kind of fulfills that when the matches aren't on. Or what was a bit sad was that Wigan were relegated, so I didn't see them in the Premier League. Haven't seen them in the Premier League since. We're now 11 years later. It'll be a fucking long time. But it was great to go into that, and I'd never played a FIFA game before. It's this idea that you could create your own manager and manage whatever team you want and build whatever team you wanted. And I remember through EA games, whatever, I had an EA account or something like that, and I'd played loads of EA games before that, but I'd built up a certain amount of EA points. So when I went in, I could just buy all of the bonus items in the kind of shop. Now, it wasn't like microtransactions. It wasn't real money. You know what I mean? It was fake stuff. But you could buy like a takeover for your club. So I immediately bought a takeover for Wigan, had a couple extra mil to spend, and would like pick the dream team. Now, I kept the classics: McManaman, Jordi Gomez, Kone. Like they were staying. Do you know what I mean? At the same time, I was like, I could afford a bit of a Wayne Rooney, maybe a young Wayne Rooney. I could maybe hop in and get, like, you know, and it was great to have this team of who I consider, like, you know, if I was watching football at the time, like my superstars, not the best players in the world, but going through a whole campaign, and in my head it was like how I coped with the grief of getting relegated. I was like, no, but this Wigan, this fake Wigan I've created, is a beast in the Premier League, and they're now entering Champions League and stuff like that. I played it for ages and had such good fun, and it was I've never been so hooked on a sport in such an intense way for so long. I'd love to recapture that because I've never had that since.
The career modes in those games were banging back in the day. Like, I was a big fan, and I'd do the same thing as you. I'd usually I wouldn't always pick like Arsenal in my club. I always wanted the challenge of picking a team that was maybe in League 2 or League 1. You build them up. Yeah. I want to build them up. Championship, Football Manager style. I never really played Football Manager, you know, that because I wanted the actual play of the matches. Yeah. Now, I would simulate a lot of them as well, because like to get through a full season.
And it's funny because I've looked at that a lot. Like Football Manager comes, and they're expensive. They're full price games, 60 quid. I've like, I'd never do that. I want to play. But when I think about it, you're right. The amount of times I would have been like, I would have had a bit of match fatigue and probably simmed like 5, 6, 7 matches in a row just to continue like getting the transfers or training the players, whatever it might be, that I'm like, Football Manager might be a thing I definitely enjoy.
I think you would, because there's a really funny aspect to it as well. I had games when I was on the PC when I was way younger, because Football Manager's been around like donkey's years, like around as long as like the FIFA games, and there's always just these like hilarious like moments where you like take it too seriously, and you're bringing up young lads from the reserves and giving them a chance at the squad and all that, and you're sitting there at home almost wearing a suit, like watching the
blooding the young ones, like the academies finally come through. But it wasn't like that thing where you could develop the players and improve their points a little bit. I can't remember, but I remember there was one. I can't think of his name. He played for Newcastle eventually in the end. At the time, he was only like 15 or 16 maybe in FIFA 13 or 14 at the time I was playing it. But his like sprint thing was outrageous. He was only 16, 17-year-old, but his sprint was like, his speed was up in the 90s or whatever else.
Was it Obafemi Martins?
No,
he was a cult hero in that game.
No, he wasn't. No, it wasn't the broken, because that guy was like insane fast. But he was an English lad, like ginger hair as well, and was playing with Newcastle up until recently, I think. But I had him on my team, and he ended up being like the Wigan superstar. And it's funny because you create these stories. It's entirely in your own head. No one else is experiencing this. But I was like, oh yes, the superstar of Wigan Athletic, who are now like 4th in the Premier League with a chance to go to Champions League, and it's all thanks to fucking Adam Townsend or whatever the fuck this kid's name was, you know. And I love that. And I have never had that experience or that feeling playing a video game since. And I'd love to kind of recapture that. I just don't think I'm into soccer that much to ever get it from that game. And I don't think any other sports games, like I know yourself and our mate Luke play a bit of the NFL games as well. Do you?
Yeah. Well, I find with them, I don't really keep up with a lot of the sport. Particularly, I don't play EAFC at all. Because there's getting online on that in particular. The standard has gone through the roof. Like people, that's some people's whole life, like gaming existence is just FIFA. That game. So if you get online, you're just going to get your arse handed to you, because there's so many tips and tricks. Like there's so many new mechanics brought into it year on year. Because I know oftentimes like the feeling is it's just the same game basically. Do you know, like the buttons really haven't deviated much, but they do each year. There is usually like little tricks you can figure out that, like on a corner, let's say, if you position how you're going to kick the ball a certain way and then move a man to like the back post, it's almost unstoppable. There's always like little tricks that people figure out, and if you don't know them, you're way off the pace. But that didn't exist in early FIFA. Like it was never a problem.
I think that was the difficulty thing that I had in the early days, where I think the difficulties were amateur, semi-pro, professional, and I can't remember what the other one was, but the jump from, because I used to play the game all the time at semi-pro, but I got really good at semi-pro, where I was like, when I was playing through the career, I was hammering teams all the time, and this doesn't feel realistic anymore. And then I'd play professional mode, and I got whooped all the time. Yeah, that was more accurate to a Wigan Athletic team. Should have been to get whooped all the time. But I really struggled with difficulty in that game, which is why I never touched the online, because people were just fucking way better.
I always thought as well it was scripted, because I was the same as you. I'd like start off at semi-pro. I'd be playing on professional a bit, and then I think the next one up was like world class. I think was the final one. And I'd play like a season, and you'd be doing well, and you'd be against a team that you were like on paper are you're worse than, like they should be beating you, but you'll be winning, and they'll be like maybe 1-0 coming up to the 90th minute, and then out of nowhere they score 2 absolute rockets. So I was like, this keeps happening. So I started looking into it, and apparently there was scripting going on where like EA didn't want you just to like romp the league. They wanted to make it seem like it was some sort of competitive. So even if you were playing well, they just fucking big do you.
And that was I don't get like ragey playing games, thankfully. I'm not a person who like online, if I'm losing, I'd never got ragey. FIFA made me ragey back in the day. In that career mode. And like it might be that it's and I'm always like, I know you can always load up games and stuff like that, but I'm never like in the Fire Emblem games when your main characters died. You could 2 modes. They either died for good or they just appeared back in the next level. I always made sure that people, when they were gone, they were gone. I was permadeath. You know, I'm into that. But same with FIFA. If I lost the FA Cup quarter-final to a fucking absolutely rage-inducing opposition goal in the 90 whatever minute, I didn't restart. But I would be in a bad mood for the fucking evening into the next day, being like, a fucking game, I'm never touching that game again. And the following night, you'd be like, on the controller, come back into career mode, like, you know.
It's actually funny. You kind of reminded me as well, because I remember now for the first time playing like FIFA Street. Did you ever play that?
No, and I heard nothing but great things about FIFA Street.
Yeah, it's because I remember seeing the ad for it, and it was something new in that world, because it had just been, you know, FIFA 2000, 2001, all the way up, and I think this came out in like 2005, 2006, around then. And I remember playing that for the first time, and I was like, "This is it's the best spin-off by a mile." And that. Like, not that there's many spin-offs.
Didn't NBA do a
NBA Street
was like a really successful?
Yeah, there was I can't remember the name of the studio that were doing them, but they had all of these really random, like bizarrely graphic, like the characters would be based on people, but they'd like elongate their arms, make their muscles insanely big. They just amped it up, and they were making crazy games. Like there was like NFL Blitz, and it was like out in a concrete backyard, and like these lads just beating the piss out of each other. There was one for like street hockey, all that sort of stuff. But they were a really fun branch of sport.
And that sort of thing, I think you could make. Like, I understand people love the simulated style of things to be as accurate as possible. But there's a lot to be said for like AA or AAA studios going out and making just really, really fun fucking, forget about all the physics of it or whatever else. Yeah. Because like you look at, it's unfortunate that Nintendo are kind of the only ones still doing it, but Nintendo brought out like a Strike Force. So it was the Mario football game. And the original Strike Force that they had was quite good. And I remember me and Craig talking about it, being like, let's split this game, you know, and you can have it for, you know, half the week. I'll have it through the half week, whatever. We'll get the guys, then we'll play it. Thinking it'd be a great football game. You know, Mario football game, and it was fun for the first 2 matches, but Nintendo being Nintendo, there wasn't a whole lot of depth. Okay. But there must be an in-between. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, FIFA's do it kind of to the 9th degree in terms of simulation, whatever else, and Nintendo's just way too fun, and there's not a whole lot of body to it, whereas something in between for like that FIFA Streets again, those games coming back would be great.
They were elite, really, really enjoy them. Yeah, I'd love to actually go back to play one of them for the first time. It'd be so much fun, because they were just something completely different in that world. They just hadn't really been done too much, and it was done really, really well. And it was around that time, do you remember that ad came out where like Eric Hansen was dancing around on a ship on top of like a fenced in football arena, and they had like 3-on-3.
Yeah.
It was around the time of that it came out, so I was like, this is elite.
It was in people's heads, you know. Do you have anything else on your list of games that if you could forget about and play again?
Yeah, so this one, it's such a recent game as well, but the reason I picked it that I'd have to Mindwipe is because I don't know if I'll ever play it again, even though I absolutely adored it on my playthrough.
Interesting.
But it was Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, KP, great shout. Yeah.
I loved it, and in terms of hours played, like it's right up there with like, you know,
probably more hours than Rebirth, because there's so much
and I made it to Act 3. I just never finished it, is the thing, because it got to a point where I was like, I almost don't even know where to go anymore, and you know, there was so much going on in the game, and there was also a lot of other games that had come out or I had in my library that I was just kind of like itching to play.
If you didn't finish it, you were never going to thing.
This is the thing. So I remember I parked it, and I've been thinking about it for a very, very long time. But like the reason I know like I'd have to like Mindwipe to do this again is because like when I got that game, it was all based off of hype. I wasn't really like too familiar with Baldur's Gate 1 or 2 and
D&D or anything like that.
No, I've never actually sat down and like played D&D. I'm familiar with obviously with what it is because like just pop culture in general. But I downloaded it I paid for it, got it like based off of hype, basically. Everyone was talking about it. I just remember hearing over and over again the same sentence being like, I can't believe this game exists. It doesn't make sense. There's so much to it. And I was like, okay, I have to dip the toe in the water, find out what's going on here. And like when I go in to play a game, one of the first things I expect is tutorial, do you know? Yeah. And like they don't give you that, Larry, and we're just like, no, figure it out. Yeah. Which I enjoy as a concept. Like some games do that, and I just think it's fun when they do. But like this game is so massive. Much. And so like the first, like I think like the first 5 hours, I didn't play the game. I was researching class types. I was researching like different attributes. I was designing my character.
I wish Chris was here, because I think Chris had a real problem with Baldur's Gate in that he just kept wanting to make new characters. Yeah. Like he'd get a couple hours into a session and be like, this isn't the one for me. And then go back into the character creation because there was so much available, you know? But yeah, I remember it's funny because Baldur's Gate 3 is one where I didn't even make it to Act 3, right? And I'd be a D&D fan. And I got Baldur's Gate on early access alpha, basically, on Google Stadia back in the day when Google Stadia was like, you know, the next biggest thing. It was an absolute flop. But the thing that killed me for Baldur's Gate, and I wish it didn't, was because I had the alpha, you could only play up to a certain point in Act 1. And I really loved it. So I did loads of different classes, and I played through Act 1 again and again and again. And like it had lots of bugs at that time because it was, you know, again, and you were like, the whole thing about it was that I was on early access or alpha, so I was reporting bugs, so they, you know, help fix the game or whatever else, community driven or whatever. And it was so frustrating because when the full game came out, with like essentially bug free, and it was a full game. I sat there and I made my character, and I got into the first like act, and I was like, oh, I've been here a good few times. Like I don't know if I can.
Yeah, just a bit of a grind. Like
it was a huge grind for me, and it was great to see because like all of our mates got it. Like all of our mates kind of loved it. I think for the most part, it's like that where it's a one and done. Like a lot of lads couldn't revisit it now because it's a mammoth of a game or whatever, but loved it, and I had such a jealousy that I wasn't getting that feeling because I had overkilled the first 20 hours of that game. I'd play that to death like countless times, and I was like, I can't believe I'm not enjoying this,
Because I find what it was funny, like as a game, like the concept of it, and like the player agency, the way that it is that you can tackle it so many different ways. Like when you talk to people who've played it, it's seldom like two people have had the same experience. Obviously, like even just starting with the class type, like that's going to really shape how you like build your team and like who you choose to like bring out like in your group of 4. So like if you wanted to, like the game itself is a bit of a mind wipe unless you like remember every aspect of it, which I certainly don't. And there's a lot of stuff that like I've forgotten.
If you went back, you'd probably play it entirely differently. What was great was when the lads were doing, I was on the first, we did like a review of Baldur's Gate 3 on the podcast ages ago, sometime last year, and we did 3 episodes, and each episode was based on an act.
Yeah, I remember
and
it.
I only got in for Act 1 because I didn't do anything after that. But it was mad to think that we were, we said, well, we'll talk about quests, we'll talk about missions, whatever else. And I don't know if you remember, but there's harpies in Act 1.
Yeah,
harpies outside the cleric camp, and you have to go save the kid. And we were all having a chat about this, and I could see Craig on the other side of the table looking at us being like, the fuck are you guys talking about? Like, and he played the game to death. We were like, oh no, there's a kid you can save with harpies by the cleric camp. And he's like, what are you? Because it's that thing where you can get, it's a game that really pulls you in certain directions, like just based on what you're doing. And there's a whole other part of the map too, but you're like, no, I'm going to go off and fucking find the thing that'll help this bear feel better or whatever it might be. So you forget about all this kind of stuff. And I love that, as you said, there's so many ways to play the game that I don't think you'd ever any playthrough would ever be the same. And
I also found with it as well, like the satisfaction I got from that game when I'd finally, get past like an enemy or something that I was struggling with. When I figured out how to beat Auntie Ethel, I was delighted with myself, and it was so simple as well, because like I can't remember if you remember when you go into her lair.
Yes.
Do you remember and she's got someone over a fire burning.
Yeah, so she's in a wooden cage over a massive hole, and she sets the cage on fire.
And the game makes it seem like all you need to do, or what you need to do, is get to this like lever and pull the lever.
Yeah.
And like you can just throw like water at her. If you've got Gale, you can cast a spell to just launch water at it. And like I was like I kept trying so hard to get to the lever. I was like, the lever, and then I was just like, do you know what, like, let's fucking launch some water at this thing. Instantly worked.
Yeah.
And then I was battling Ethel for ages, and she kept kicking the shit out of me, because one of the things that I was struggling with was, and I'm saying this like play Baldur's Gate. If anyone's thinking like this sounds too tough, don't play it. It's absolutely amazing. But like the class types, if you're not familiar with each and every one of them, it takes a while to learn how to like, use your team effectively, and like the turn-based system, and casting spells in different areas, and then using another person to push them into that and all that sort of stuff. And I eventually buffed my main character, who I just picked a fighter class because I researched a fair bit, and it was like, if you're not an absolute D&D expert, maybe start here, because it's probably got the easiest gameplay for you. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll do that. So I buffed the living bejesus out of them, took one of those like potions that makes you massive, just ran up to her and pushed her off the edge of a cliff, and she was dead. That was it. And I was so, because I probably it wasn't hours, but I kept having to revisit that her lair, because I'd die, I'd realize I haven't got it, I'd go off, try to like level up a bit, find some more loot or something, and I was like, right, I got my bits, and I went back and I destroyed her in the simplest way possible. And I was like,
and it's so funny how like, because I love that, because the game doesn't like, there's a couple of things that will get you like a blatant game over or whatever. But one of my favorite things is early on in Act 1, it's to, you need to find Halcyon the cleric. Find Halcyon the cleric. He'll know how to solve this problem for the refugees, blah blah blah. And I remember, build up, and I was like, yeah, I know this, I know what to do here. And again, I wasn't a scum saver, and I'm a person who, whatever happens, and you just have to fucking deal with the consequences. And I rescued Halcyon from the thing, and he turned into a bear, and he was helping me fight, because he's a druid or whatever, changed into a bear, helping me fight off all the goblins, whatever else in this castle. And I remember I think he used a potion or a spell or something like that. I didn't really exactly know what it did. And Halcyon was fairly beat up and he was surrounded by orcs. So I was like, I'll throw this over there, that'll help him. And it exploded and it set loads of, there was just stuff on the ground, like oil or whatever, like all these things that you don't think about. And it set everything on fire and it killed Halcyon. And what really pained me, and I think that was one of the reasons that I struggled to continue on in the game, because I had like the one save slot, so I didn't like have loads. I was like, okay, I'm going to save now immediately after this. He's gone. Like I lost Halcyon. And then when I was talking to everybody about like, oh yeah, we have Halcyon on our team, he says this, that, and the other, he's a lot of fun and whatever else, I was like, oh god, have I made a terrible mistake here? And then I went back to try and start the game again, new class, new whatever else, and that was for me, it was like, this I don't know if I can actually play through this. It's a fantastic game though.
It's so good. It's so good.
And story-wise, did it grip you at all, or was it more the gameplay in terms of?
It's a funny one, because it was for me. It was definitely more about the gameplay, because I found the game itself was so large with so many quests that you could undertake, and I didn't realize I was actually doing this, because the game didn't win like best narrative at the Game of the Year awards.
It had best voice actor was Asterion, and I think it might have had something else as well. It must have. I mean, it was in it won Game of the Year.
Yeah. But I think I remember getting an award for like narrative, because I remember that being a bit of a room splitter, because like the narrative itself is quite all over the place, like not in a overly negative sense.
No, but there's so much.
It's hard to follow.
Yeah, there's so much side shit going on that you don't know which part of the story is the thing you're meant to be doing, as opposed to the shit that's just happening around you.
Like if that journal didn't exist, that you could go back and kind of log what quests you were in the middle of, because I think I was tackling it in a way that maybe the game doesn't intend you to tackle. Like I was searching every area of the map that was visible. I know there's certain times you could go into like a room and there'd be a trap door and then you're in this whole new area. But if there was space on the map that was like blacked out still, I was like, I need to go over there and explore that before I move on. So I was starting quests left, right.
You was getting pulled everywhere.
I was getting pulled everywhere. So narratively, that was really like, that was tough to keep up with, but like the gameplay itself more than made up for it. And one of the things I remember, like, I think I was watching a YouTube video, someone like just raving about the game, and they also acted as a dungeon master in or is it dungeon master? What's it?
Yeah. DM,
so he was like, this game has perfectly captured what Dungeons and Dragons is. And not even just with like the skill checks, which that in itself was a learning experience for me, but just the madness, sheer madness of it. Because like, do you remember in Act 1 you stumble across like an ogre orgy, and it's what am I looking at here? That was so early on in the game, and I was like, this is set a tone. This is phenomenal.
It was one of the most enjoyable things for me, because I mean I DM'd like a campaign with the lads for, you know, the best part of a year and a half, you know, and it was funny how it's that classic thing, as you said, like, oh, here's the main quest, but I have no idea about that main quest anymore because I'm off doing all this random shit. There were so many times where I would prep all this work, man. I'd have like sheets and sheets and sheets of like the mission and the things the guys are meant to be doing, and they're meant to go this direction and blah blah blah. And I remember there was one where the guys would come up to me, you know, where they'd be like, oh, we want to talk to this guy. And, you know, I'm like, oh, well, and like just randomly, like they're in a village and they're asking loads of questions about NPCs. And I haven't written shit for all these NPCs that I have in this world or whatever. And they're like, oh, what's this guy? And I was like, oh, he's upset. He's sad. Like, you know, he's just buried his son or whatever, you know, based on the plague that was here. And it's funny because when you're DMing, people don't know that when you're just trying to bullshit your way through something, or if you mean that there's something there. So they were like, oh, they just buried his son. There must be something. And like, I was off the top of my head, like there must be something in that. For the next like 2-3 hours, I was like on the fly, right? Because they went off grave digging for this son, because they were like, there has to be something in his body. And I was like, and it was funny because I went to the point of like, do I let this go for 2 or 3 hours and I have them dig up the body, and they'd be like, it's just a body. It's just this dude's. I was like, I can't do this. So like, it ended up being like, oh, this guy has got like there seems to be a part of a map on this, and then off they go. But like, Baldur's Gate captures that perfectly, because here's the main quest, but you can get distracted by just about fucking everything that's going on around you in a positive way, and in a real nice way.
Because there's always risk reward with doing that as well. Because like sometimes it worked out so well in your favor, but then other times it could really, really do you over. Like, I don't know if you came across Volo or Bolo, mate. I think it was Volo. He was like a bard, mate, and he was a bit of a character. Did you let him do the surgery on you?
Yeah, where he takes out your eye.
Yeah, but then he replaces it with an eye that lets you see up to like 3 meters or 4 meters in the dark and invisibility and everything like that. Yeah. But so like, that's well worth it. But then there was another one where, kind of similar to your one, where like a wife has just buried her husband or something like that.
Oh, and you can revive him, and he's just a zombie.
Yeah, and then like you're
and
next
she's
to me,
really
just
upset.
fighting a zombie. Yeah, and like that happened to me a few times. Like
Yeah.
kept going to like graveyards and this sort of stuff. And
it was spectacular in that, like, I don't really think there'd been a game. Like, I mean, there is like, they have Larian did like Divinity, Original Sin, or whatever those games were, exact same kind of concept, but just not done as well. Like just older versions, essentially. Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 was the first game that was like kind of next gen. I mean, it looks great. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Plays really well. But in terms of like where pretty much anything, not anything goes, but the amount of things that you can do, if you can think of it, you can almost do it.
Yeah.
It's been a long time, if ever, that I played a video game quite like that. Yeah.
It was amazing that they like, apparently there was something about like 6,000 lines of dialogue for the voice actors, like main dialogue, like not just like an NPC, like, oh, welcome to Baldur's Gate, like nothing like that, like literally like.
It'd be huge, man.
It's insane. Like the voice acting of it as well is
everyone's great.
absolutely
The whole
phenomenal.
team is and like what I love about Baldur's Gate 3 is that there was kind of a bit of a hubbub that was made about the voice act. They ended up appearing on like YouTube channels that did live D&D sessions, and they all went on as their characters, you know, for whatever, I can't remember what channel it was, but all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? There's a big following for all them. Like, I love that kind of aspect about video games. But I would love to mind wipe Baldur's Gate 3 in my head, because I played it, the start of it, to death so much that I never got through to finish it. And if I could mind wipe it and just experience it for the first time, not doing the fucking alpha on Stadia or whatever else, I think I would have absolutely ate that game up.
Yeah, because there's so many things I want to redo, like things that I know I did wrong, but just decisions I made that are like, I want to go back and do that again. But like, it got to the point, like when I was playing Baldur's Gate, that like I'd be looking at my calendar and I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna box off this Saturday for 6 hours,
because you can't. That's the only problem with a game like that. You cannot sit down for an hour and play that.
No, you get nothing out of it. You're just rearranging your campsite. Like it's such a waste of time.
And I think that was another thing. I think we'll wrap it up now in a bit, but I think one of my least favorite things about myself when it comes to games like that, I remember, and it's so stupid, I've got like an OCD thing about it, but you know the way you could go back to your camp, and around the camp there was just a couple of things you could interact with. One of them was a table that was full of books. Like the table looked like it was full of books, and there was loads of books around it. And I used to pick up all the books that you'd come across in the world. Like, you're just meant to read them and leave them. But I picked them all up, and they weighed a fucking tons. And then all of a sudden you're encumbered and got to get rid of all these books. So I spent feckin' ages going back into the campsite and putting all the books into this like desk for like, here's my library, for no fucking reason. And it took me ages. And it was one of those things where at the time when it first came out and I was doing that, I don't know if it ever happened for you, but Baldur's Gate, I think on 2 or 3 occasions, just shut down, just closed.
Me,
Like, so I had done this, spent like 2 hours just fucking cleaning up. Like, just that's all I was doing. Like, nothing to do with the game whatsoever, just cleaning up in the camp. And I got that error. And I didn't touch it again for about a week. I think it just was one of those things that, and it was my own fault. Like, what a stupid way to waste your gaming session. You know, just like putting books in a desk. Like, but the game got me like that. I think there's too much in it for someone like me to just plow through and get the enjoyment for the way the game is meant to be played. I think I get so wrapped up with like inventory organization that I had a nightmare with it. Like, you know, great game though. Fucking, I know that's a me problem, not a game problem. You know. KP, I think we'll leave it there. We're approaching the hour mark. Probably a good episode.
Nice.
Great shout with God of War as well. Like I said, I had Ragnarok. I'm glad you had 2018 because that was worth a shout. And I don't think we've ever talked too much about God of War on the podcast.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But I mean, it's a long time. I've been doing it for a while. Yeah, great game. If you're still interested in more content, myself and KP are going to do a quick chat about what our game of the year this year has been so far. Not in terms of release 2024, but just games that we've been playing this year, what we've really enjoyed. And if you want to hear that and loads more content, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/thegiftofgaming. There's loads of episodes there. We have like a battle royale that we're doing. There's extra news episodes, just random chit chat. If you're into that, go check it out. It's about, I think it's €3 a month. I can't remember. It's cheaper than a coffee a month. So if you're interested, want to support us, it'd be great if you could head on over to patreon.com/thegiftofgaming and check that out. KP, thanks so much.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and to our listeners, as always, and forever, keep enjoying the gift that is gaming. Peace out.